Hey, welcome to this week's training. Today, I've got an amazing guest for you guys, Adam Lyons. He's someone I followed on the interwebs for quite some time. And one of the things that I found very interesting about this guest in particular is how he's not really just stuck in one niche. He's not really just put in a box. This is a person who, from my experience from looking, we'll get his story, but he was in the kind of the relationship space. Right. He was in that. And then he started transitioning to other things. And I believe now he's investing in different businesses. He's growing. He's the type of person I want to be when I grow up. So that's why we got him on here. We're going to try and get some really cool advice and consultations out of him and all that good stuff. Adam, dude, thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, thank you ever so much for having me, man. It's likewise. Like I love looking at all your copywriting stuff and seeing how you're helping people. So yeah, this is a mutual respect thing. I'm excited to grow up to be you.
Heck yeah, man. So just for the folks who may not know who you are, can you give us a little story about how you got into the marketing world? Because I always find that's very interesting. It's usually some interesting stories in there, but how you got into the marketing world. And let's just start with that and we'll transition to where you are now.
I'll do the Cliff Notes version. Sure. Bear with me, everybody listening. So it all started back when I was a young kid. No, I grew up in a project. Like when I mean poor, I mean poor. Like, I remember getting grounded because I put a second slice of bacon in my bacon sandwich. English people eat bacon sandwiches. Gotcha. And at the age of 11, I was told if I wanted 2 slices of bacon, I'd better get a job. And so I started working at the age of 11. So that kind of level of poor, I got, grew up in really bad neighborhoods. I was beaten up by a gang of 20 youths on 3 different occasions, different groups, just by getting caught up in gang warfare going on in the part of London that I grew up in. So yeah, and this accent I have is the one that Americans can understand. It's not my real one. My real one is a London accent, but it's a London accent that nobody can really understand because it's so ghetto.
I was going to say, it's from the streets. It's the gang. The London accent.
Like my real accent's like this, mate. Like if I'm hanging out with my brothers, like we all talk like that, you get me? But like, if I talk like this, especially if I'm hanging out like in America, everyone's like, fuck you say, bro. And so I have to use this accent.
Dictionary.
Yeah, because you have to use this accent, because this is the one that people understand. And so I learned to adapt it. Otherwise, I sound like a criminal or a used car salesman. Anyway, because that's the only jobs you can get. So at the age of 26, I grew to the illustrious career of a janitor because my dad was a janitor and his dad was a janitor. Well, a janitor on a ship, but still the same thing. And that's what you do in England. You do the job your parents do. And I sat as a janitor at a desk, wondering why no one loved me because I was really sad. And I decided to learn about dating. I ended up becoming one of the world's leading dating coaches. I trained a lot of people. Many people heard of me, but a lot more people heard of my students. Like there are a lot of very famous dating coaches that came out from under me that I'd trained. As I was known as the dating coach's dating coach. When some authors of some famous dating books had dating problems, and I've got an NDA, so I'm not going to say who, but they would hire me for help. And so that was kind of like what I was known for. But I was frustrated, and you know this, Carlos. I was frustrated because I was really good and everyone else made lots of money. I remember the day I got voted #1 in the world on like 3 different blogs, and I was like celebrating and then realized I couldn't pay my mortgage that month because I didn't have enough money. And that's the reality of being amazing at something, is that you're terrible at other things, and marketing was one of them. So I found myself in a situation where there was one company feeding me all my leads, and that's what I was living off of, and they shut shop. They didn't want to do it anymore, and they gave me 3 months notice. They were going to shut the door because they knew that was my lifeblood. And I was basically faced with find a new career, get a real job, or learn marketing. So I started hiring marketing experts. And I was very fortunate. The first marketing expert I hired was real. I knew there were a lot of fakes, but I lucked out, and I did a lot of due diligence. I gave him all my life savings, all of it. I went down to $0 and made 38 grand 2 weeks later.
Wow.
The most I'd ever made at that point. So that was phenomenal. And then after that, sky was the limit. I started really knuckling down. And over the years, I mean, this is now like, 2011. As the years went by, we're now in 2022, I got really good at it. It was about 8 years ago that, and I've always invested in hiring experts, right? Because, I've told everyone, like, you should hire Carlos, or Carlos is phenomenal. Like, you should hire experts. That's what it comes down to. They're smarter than you and they know more than you. Hire them.
Well, real quick, before we go on to it, that's actually where I wanted to ask you something about, because most people don't want to hire experts until they've done it maybe successfully one time, and then they live by it. They're like, yeah, 100% hire a coach. But there is a lot of, there's like a big barrier with, say, new entrepreneurs and them wanting to invest in a coach. Did you always have this mentality of like, let me find a coach that's better than me? Or did someone guide you and suggest that?
It's a great question. No, I didn't have it until dating. And in dating, I would go and try and get good at dating, and I was terrible. And so I hired someone to help. And what was really funny is they were terrible too. But weirdly, I learned that you can learn from terrible, because even if someone's terrible, they often know things you don't know. And so in dating was a great example. Most of my coaches, my early coaches, were really, really bad. I've had some good ones since, but most of them were really bad. And it wasn't actually until I was already a successful dating coach that I found the good ones. But what would happen is they would teach me some things and I'd be like, oh, 20% of that was useful. The rest was terrible. But the 20% that was useful went in the mental bank, and you go on and you continue and you continue. And then like, I've got a situation. I currently have about 4 different like mentors / coaches that I'm paying 6 figures each. I mean, stupid amounts of money I'm paying because it's worth it. And this one guy, I've been paying him 10 grand a month. So we're in month 4. So he's had $40,000 off of me. And I got my first meeting with him 2 weeks ago because he's been busy. Wow. And yeah, which sounds insane to most people. Wow. Like, you've been paying this guy 10 grand a month and he skipped on 3 months worth of meetings. Don't get me wrong. He gave me his video library. I mean, like, that's useful, right? And you know, all my team, my fiance, everyone's like, this guy's a scam. And I was like, no, he's really not. I was like, look, he told me minimum 10 months. I was like, I'm committing to it. I didn't sign into this blind. I'm not an idiot. And so last week, 2 weeks ago, I have my meeting with him, and he's telling me all these things that I already know. And I learn nothing until he makes one sentence, just one, as an offhanded comment. To him, it was like obvious. To me, no one had ever said it to me before in my life. And suddenly, things that I had struggled with for maybe 5 years fell into place. I left. We were supposed to hang out until 4 p.m. At noon, I said, all right, I'm good. I'm going home. And he's like, you still got 4 hours. Is everything okay? You know, he started feeling bad. I was like, no, I got it. And he's like, can you share with me what you got? I was like, not yet. I need to go. I need to think about what you said. It kept me up until 11 o'clock that night thinking about it. I normally go to bed at like 9 to 10. And then I woke up at 2 a.m. the next day. So I had 3 hours sleep because I was still thinking about it. By 9 a.m., I had a proposal for my team of how we were going to shift a whole bunch of things. Proposed it, went back to him a week later and showed him what he said. And of course, I'm going to share it with you because sure, I'm sure somebody else had the same revelation. And he said to me, he's like, and you mentioned at the beginning, Adam, you're so good at lots of different things that many people know your individual programs or your individual products, but nobody puts them all together and realizes they're all you because one of the key things I like building businesses to sell them. So I keep myself out of them. He's like, but the problem is because there's no way of unifying and knowing that you don't get your natural crossover that would come across it. He's like, think about Richard Branson and Virgin. Music's completely different to trains, to airlines, to all the other Virgin experiences they have. He's like, but the word Virgin is what's unanimous across them. And he's like, what's your word? And I'd never been able to think of the word before because I'd known this is a problem, right? The global brand, the big brand. And, you know, the name of my company is Global Corporate Holdings. You know, it's because I buy and sell companies nowadays, right? When I walk into a multi-million-dollar deal and they're like, what's the name of your company? You know, I don't want to be like Adam Inc. or whatever. It's like Global Corporate Holdings. You know, then it sounds like Adam. Right. Yeah, exactly. Global Corporate Holdings. Oh, of course.
Definitely legit.
Right. It sounds right. It's, you know, but that's not a good brand. You know, you don't want Global Corporate Holdings trains, right? It doesn't sound good. And my business program is the Smarts Blueprint. And he said to me, you know, you smart or something. And I was like, smart. I'm like, smart dating, smart business, smart copywriting, smart trains. I'm like, oh my God, the word is smart. So I was like, this is great. So I then, you know, went online and couldn't find smart anything because everyone's bought it. Somebody else has smart water, smart, you know, bathing. I don't know, whatever. Everyone's already got it. And so this was what woke me up at 2 a.m. I woke up realizing it doesn't have to be a word. It can be two. And I realized the thing that makes me, Carlos, you know, I'm amazing at making offers. I'm amazing at copywriting. I'm amazing at email writing. I'm amazing at buying businesses, negotiating, selling, sales scripts, standard operating procedures, corporate structuring, financing. You name it, I'm good at it when it comes to business, but all because of two things. One, I go about things the easiest way possible, which makes me faster. My way will be easier than someone else's because I hate wasting energy. So I would rather spend 90 minutes mapping out something I'm going to do and then 10 minutes doing it, where somebody else will spend 100 minutes just going to do it. That's one of my superpowers, is I will start slower than everyone to move faster later, right? And because my understanding will be better. So that's one thing. That, to me, that's
notes
smart.
over here.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, to me, that's smart, right? That's the smart piece. And then the other thing is I only ever operate from structures and blueprints, only ever. If you ask me to do something, the very first time I do it, I will actually write down the template first. And then I'll populate the template knowing I can use that template again. I've got hundreds of templates. In fact, the Smart Blueprint, my business program, is all my templates. That's it. I just sell people my templates. I'm like, have them. You want a website template? I got it. Copywriting template? Here you go. Content, emails, whatever you want. Hiring template? Got it. It's all there, right? So that's kind of what I do. So it's like, oh, my name is Smart Blueprint. So it became Smart Business Blueprint, Smart Love Blueprint, Smart. And then I was like, oh, this is great. And suddenly all those URLs are available for $1.
Oh my goodness.
So I just went and just bought every one that I want to use, right? I bought every single one of them to lock everyone else out. It cost me $100, bought 100 domains, and I've, got everything. So that was worth, how much realistically, if I hired a corporate branding expert to come into my company and give me that, would I have paid? A lot more than the 40 G's that I've paid this guy. Realistically, like a brand, I used to work for PepsiCo, Nike, and Yum Corporation back in the day, and they would have paid 300 grand or more for that moment. So it was a discount. So I then sat down with my team and I was like, yep, that was worth it. That was a 5-minute discussion that came out of a 3-hour one.
That reminds me of it's so interesting because it reminds me of I think I heard Dan Kennedy say this in some audio years ago.
Mm-hmm.
He said he went to a Gary Halbert seminar conference, and it was just a throwaway line that Gary Halbert said, that he was talking about all this stuff. Dan understood it all already, but then Gary said something about, and then they paid me some royalties, and then went to the next thing. And he was like, royalties? He's like, this guy's charging for royalties, getting a percentage. Yep. And it was that throwaway line that Gary Halbert just thought was common knowledge. But for Dan Kennedy, it was like revolutionary. And then he started doing the, charging for royalties and doing all this stuff. But it's interesting that, and I think, again, Gary had something called players with money. You're like a player with money because it's a person who's not necessarily measuring the information by the pound, by how many courses and books they get or how much time they have. It's, if I can get the $1 million advice that I want in 5 minutes, and that's what I'm paying for. That's what I want. I don't need to have all this other stuff. So I think that's one of the cool traits about yourself, that it seems like you're naturally like that. Like, you don't need to be fluffed up with a bunch of stuff. You just need what you need and then get to going.
It's so funny. I was chatting to Josh Snow just before this.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we both said is we both have an abundance mindset. So by the way, one of the reasons we get on so well together, we both understand that, we are from our pockets might not be unlimited, but we act like they are. And that doesn't mean that we're going out and spending money all the time. It just means that we understand the value of something and we'll pay for value. And I'd rather have value and pay more for it, even if it's more than I thought it would be, to get the value. Yeah. But I don't judge value based on time or receiving things. I judge value based on enlightening moments, on learning something that I can leverage time and time again in the future. I don't want your time. I want what's inside your head. And once I get that, I will use it. I don't need you to use it anymore. I'll use it, and I will use it time and time again. That one answer I got on the branding cost me $40,000. But I will use that. I own 11 different companies, and I've got a whole bunch of different partners with other companies. And in the last 2 years, I've consulted for 1,900 brands on their businesses. I will use that one piece of advice, over the next couple of years, assuming I work with as many clients, at least 2,000 times. And it will be worth its weight in gold. I will easily get a $40,000 sale out of that piece of advice at some point within the next X amount of days or years or months or whatever it takes. And I will probably get many. So one of the things that, like, go back to the first question about like, why am I such a fan of hiring coaches and experts? It's because inside everybody's head is a lifetime of information. Inside the head of successful people is a lifetime of successful information. I would like the SMART blueprint, right? Is a good example. It's a $3,000 program or a $5,000 program. I forget. I don't know, because I have companies that my team handle it. I think it's 5,000 and we accept 3,000, I think is the truth, right? But the reality is of the SMART blueprint, if you sat down and you created every single template in there, because there's lead acquisition templates and there's, like I said, conversion templates, email templates, headline trainings. If you were to create the templates alone, it would take you, well, I created it over 2 years. Year one, I made version 1 and I scrapped it because I was unhappy with the results my clients got with the templates. I was very happy with my own results, but my clients couldn't duplicate it. So I gave all my clients the second year for free. And then I sold it again, made version 2, and redesigned all the templates to be even simpler, because I was adding my own creativity into my templates and the clients couldn't do that. So I was like, okay, well, they don't have the creativity to pull on. I'm going to make this even stupider, and with love, it's like stupid. Yeah. And so I made it better. And the second year, like, I don't care who you are. If you want to spend a year of your life building out templates on your own mental experience, great. If you want to pay $3,000 and just let me give them to you, also great, right? And so that was kind of like the concept. And to me, that's what it really comes down to. No one's screwing you over. Like, they're just charging for their time or their experience, whatever they've got. What you do with that is on you. And sometimes you may not be able to apply it. And sometimes it may be a problem. And sometimes somebody may be a fake. But in my experience, when you've been in business as long as I have, so I've been running my dating business for 17 years.
Wow.
If I and I still own it to this day. It's now completely passive. I couldn't tell you how much we charge for it. I couldn't tell you the name of any of the students. I couldn't tell you anything. All I know is it makes 7 figures a year. And
that's so sick.
Right. And there's some other people that run it, right? That's great. That's what I want. Because I have people nowadays go, oh, you're supposed to know your numbers. And they're right, because I always teach that. I'm like, look, my numbers are an email away. I can click and get them. all I know is that I get a report every single month that shows me that it's up and up and up. It grew 47% on last year. I was like, I know that number. I know it grew 47%, because that's all I care about, And it also has a customer satisfaction rating of 6.2 out of 7. So
jeez, that's great.
Yeah, exactly. I know the important numbers. 6.2 out of 7, 47% growth. And I know our refund rate is less than 2 a year, less than 2 refunds a year.
It sounds, just from listening to you, and this is just my take on it from the outside, right? It seems like your superpower is, like, I'm sure a lot of things, but it seems like it's systems. It's building systems and creating the organization so that it can kind of run on its own. One thing we spoke about a little bit off air, you're talking about Josh and stuff, is, and hopefully this is okay. So Josh spent like 6 months. He's got a humongous company. He spent like 6 months, or not 6 months. He created a 6-month plan of action, business plan. And I know that you're a fan of these things as well. And it's so interesting how that's counterintuitive to the marketing world, because it seems like, sure, let's make a plan. That makes sense. But there's so many entrepreneurs, whether it's in the marketing world or just a small business world, where they just kind of get going and figure it out as shit's flying at them left and right. And they never really get traction, right? You have to have
a plan. I'll give you because you're a copywriter, I'll give you a copywriting story. You'll appreciate it.
I would love it.
So it's Wednesday, 6 a.m. and I get a phone call from a friend of mine who's running an event in Austin, and he's got 200 people in the event. And the event's been going for a few days. There's 48 hours left, today and tomorrow. And he says, got a problem. We haven't made enough sales. And I currently owe $500,000. Can you fix it? That was the thing. So I know many people, kind of like what we're talking about, I won't operate without a business plan. Everyone else, most people I know, they will just jump straight in. I got this. Let me give you my system or my proven thing, or I'm amazing at copywriting. Like, I'll write some copy. I was like, I got you, but I'm going to give a business plan. So I said, I want to talk to all the people in the sales and marketing department, and I want to hear what they've been sold already, because you've been selling all week. I want to know what it is. So first of all, I got listening and I heard everything they did. So it's the first part of the business plan, right? Know what you're dealing with. Where are you? So I had all this information. I was like, cool. Second of all, do you have the ability to text every attendee? And they were like, yeah. I was like, great. I'm gonna craft a text message I want you to send. And the text message said, thank you so much for attending the event. We're super excited for the next 48 hours with you. We want to make sure that we deliver everything you want. If there's one thing that we could deliver that we haven't yet, the thing that will really move the needle and change everything for you, could you respond to the text message and tell us exactly what that is? We got almost 200 replies.
Whoa.
Everyone claiming what they, because it was a text message from people live at the event. You're going to get almost 100%, right? Imagine if you're coming to my house for dinner and I text you, you're going to reply. So they replied. And so we got almost 200 points a day. It wasn't everyone, but it was almost everyone, of what they wanted. And so in the first day, I sat in a room with all that data and I identified that there were only 5 things they wanted. They all fit into these 5 buckets. So I've now got 200 answers. I think it was like 165, whatever, but almost 200 answers in 5 buckets. So I then sat down at breakfast with the guy the next day, the last day, and I was like, all right, I got it. This is what we're going to offer. And I wrote down the price. I wrote down, based on how much they paid for the ticket at this event, what had been offered before. And actually I sold something that was 3 times more than anything else that had been sold at the event. Everything they'd sold was $5,000 and I wrote something for 15. Because I'd identified that the audience could afford it. I was like, I think you're offering, it's almost too low. It's not as, based on their responses, it sounds like they want more attention. And you've been offering something that doesn't give them attention. They have money and they want attention. I was like, so we should charge more and give them attention. That's what they're after. So I wrote this whole pitch in the morning, and I got feedback from the owner of the company and some other people. And he's like, well, should we pitch it together on stage? And I said, I prefer you weren't there, to be honest with you. I'd rather let me do it and I'll just talk about how great you are, because it's easier. If you're there, you're selling yourself. I was like, let me sell you. So he goes, okay. So I go up on stage and I've got 20 minutes. And the previous person that was speaking, he kind of bombed the audience. He was a bit boring. So they were all tired. So I had the audience stand up and just tell me the best thing about the event so far and so they were all hyped up. They're like, because they hyped themselves up, right? They were, oh, I love this, I love that. Oh yeah, this was great. And they kind of forgot about the boring.
Bringing the energy back up.
Right. I got the energy back up, but through them, I didn't do it. Got the correct. And then once the energy was up, I was like, look, we went through and we sent you a survey asking what you guys wanted. And I'm here to tell you today that we're going to fail. And I'm very sorry. And the whole audience was like, oh, I was like, because what you guys want is personal attention. Unfortunately, this room isn't built in a way for that. This is a big seminar. There's 200 of you and there's not enough of us. But for a small few of you, we would like to give you that opportunity. Just a small few of you. If you had the opportunity, this is the if-then statement, it's one of my favorites. If you had the opportunity to get the personal attention you need, where our team sat down with you in a much smaller venue than this and looked over everything that you wanted to bring to us that solved the following 5 things and then listed the 5 things they said.
So sick.
Then would you be willing to join that room? Raise your hand. Whole room raises their hand. I was like, now naturally, you know that we charge. And I said, this is how much we normally charge for a single day. And I outlined it. I was like, but we don't want to give you one day. We want to give you one day a month for a year. So we want to give you 12 days for a year. You'd normally pay $20,000 for a day. I'm bad at math. Can someone in the room just do 20,000 times 12 for me? So the whole audience like, telling me. So they're like, 240,000. I was like, oh, I fucked up. Because I'm only charging 15 grand for this. So they all go, oh, and I'm like, it's first come, first serve. Just go to the back of the room, everyone that wants it. They all just go. So, we closed $810,000 in sales.
Oh my God.
200 people.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, technically, that's a lie. It was 750,000, and we picked up the extra 60 from people messaging us after they left, saying, "Hey, I missed it. Can I join?" They'd already left the room and weren't there for the
Wow.
pitch.
Dude, that is.
Yeah. Thanks. So that's an example of systems and a business plan, right? Planning it. Don't just be like, I got this. I'm an artist. Like I am not an artist. I am a scientist, and I use structures and systems for everything. But yeah, 810 grand in 20 minutes. And that's a thing people hire me for. They phone me up and say, at 6 a.m., hey, help, I'm panicking. I don't have enough money, because they know if they've got an audience, it doesn't really matter how big, you can sell to them. So yeah, so that's what I did.
$800,000 in
810,000 out of 200 people.
That is unreal. That is so sick. I mean, that is a real strategy. People can literally just copy and paste into their seminar business whenever they run an offer, a seminar, a mastermind. Like, that's so sick. It's so simple and so sick. You were talking about how you like to make things easy and simple. I mean, your entire pitch was or not pitch, but your whole approach seemed like, let's ask people what they want. You narrowed it down to what the main things were. You created the offer. You got the audience engaged. I mean, there's just so many things in here that were like masterfully done. And you got people to go to the end of the room, and you made basically $1 million almost in half.
Yeah, and it was like, I think it's about a quarter of the room, I think, is roughly what we converted, right? So it's like 54 sales, something like that, 50 something sales. Yeah. So yeah, it was thank you. It was great. But again, it's a system. That's not the only time I've done that. Right. I did it again. Same guy, obviously. That's the problem when you do stuff like this. They phone you again.
So you can't get rid of people then.
Yeah. Same guy 2 months ago phoned me up to do it again. Well, I say 2 months ago, January, we're in February. So January. And invited me to a room, 70 people. And he said, how much can you get out of the room? It's a new question now. How much can you get? They weren't in trouble anymore, right? How much can you get out of the room? And he goes, do you think you can get 100 grand out of the 70 people? And I was like, well, we can't do the text message thing again. We're gonna have to, it's got to be different. They'll see it coming. We have to do it again. And he goes, look, if you can do 100 grand, we'll say thanks. If you do 200 grand, we'll call you good. 300 grand, and we'll say you're amazing. I was like, okay. So this time round, I sat down with the people. It was only 70, and I went around the room personally, and I sat around with them, and I was like, if you could redesign any aspect of this program, what would you change? And I had them tell me in conversation how they'd redesign it. So again, I just write down everything they want in the redesign, and then once again went away, and this time I pitched it, and it bombed. And I'm not kidding, it bombed. Initially, I pitched it from stage, and it completely flopped. No one bought. No one walked to the stage. No one bought anything. And so I'm standing on stage. I'm sweating bricks. I'm like, oh, I'm done. And so I said, so clearly, what I just created was wrong. And the whole audience just looked at me. I'm like, would someone mind raising their hand and tell me what's wrong with my offer?
Wow.
And so the audience start raising their hand and telling me what they want. So I say, so the assistant at the back there, I'm like, could you do me a favor and just write it down? And so they wrote it, and I just took questions and listen, we want this, we want that, we want the other. Okay, great. So if the price was what I said, you'd want this, this, this. And so I look at the assistant, I was like, can you bring up that note? So they bring it up. I was like, so let me just get this right, guys. If we create, and I listed everything back at them, all these workshops, they wanted everything. I was like, if we create all this, then you would pay, and this was like an even higher fee. I think this was like 50K or something. Then you'd pay that. And the people in the room were like, they were like, yeah. And so I was like, cool, then done. And again, we did like, 400 grand or something in that. So it wasn't, a lot of sales, but I mean, still it was a lot of money.
So you get real feedback. This is so cool, because there's people who would take that and just look at it like, fuck, I fucked up. That was it. That's the failure. And you recouped this and turned it into a big win just by being straight. I almost wonder if this comes from like your dating background, or you being super direct and just knowing how to speak with people or something. Because there's something there, dude. This is really...
It's definitely a factor. Like back in the day with dating, I was never trying to get good at dating. Funny enough, I was just trying to understand why it worked or didn't work. So there were absolute times where I would hang out with women, and if they wouldn't go on a date with me, I'd be like, oh, I get it. Like I took them and said, do you mind if I ask you a silly question? I was like, I'll buy you a drink if you answer it. And they'd be like, yeah. I was like, would you just tell me everything that's wrong with me? Like truly say, because this is not the first time a woman said this to me, and I'd just like to know what you want. And they were like, oh, come on, you seem like a nice guy. I'm like, no, I'm serious. Like, I haven't gone on a date for X long. Like, straight up, I'll buy you a drink if you'll just be real with me. What do I need to do?
You're picking her up while you're getting advice.
Yeah, and they would sit there and they would be like, you should do this, you should do that, you should do the other. But they would often introduce me to a friend of theirs that was single. I'd end up getting dates anyway, which was funny. But yeah, I've never been afraid of feedback, especially from people I'm trying to sell something to. Like, if I made something and you don't want to buy it, what did I do wrong?
Right.
Yeah, what have I failed? Because, and I'm saying, I'm only here because I want to deliver. Like, I want to make money, sure, but that's not the prime reason. The prime reason is I want you to go away and say how amazing I am at what I do. So please tell me. And yeah, and that's why, I've got like the I don't know if it's going to be audio only, but I got my double click funnels things behind me, but they're only my ones. Like, I've helped I think 4 other people get that 7-figure award thing. And it's all been the same way. It's all just been, could you please tell me? And that's why, my dating offer, like I said, has, a 47% growth year on year. It was 43% the year before, 47% last year. It's why we've got the 6.2 out of 7, rating, because we're always tweaking it, making it better, improving it. Or like my business program, like I said, we did year 2 for free because I was very unhappy with year 1. What was hysterical, by the way, is we had no complaints. No one complained about year 1, but I just saw something like only 25% of them quadrupled their money or more. Everyone made their money back, but only 25% quadrupled. I was like, this is insane. My offers are so good. There's no way that my blueprints didn't 4x their revenue. That's just insane. There's, some of one of my clients was doing 200 grand and then got up to over $1 million. I was like, that's more like it. But then you had this other guy that was like, I was doing 3 grand a month before I worked with you, and now I'm doing 6. I'm really happy. And I was like, no, you are not happy. I am not happy for you. You're doing it again. And he's like, no, I can't afford it. No, it's free. We're doing it one more time, buddy, because I'm really upset at my results on this. And so I went through it and did it again. But that's what it should mean when you create something. I don't care what you create, right? And then offers are easy because you're building what they want and giving it to them.
So, okay, I take this back. You really are good at you have more than one superpower. So you're like a superpower of systems, clearly, and your superpower is with offers. I mean, I just posted about this. I was reading Doberman Dan's book about products and services, and he's like, most people trying to sell products and services, what they really need to do is sell an offer. And he goes into how to create irresistible offers and things like that. And it sounds like you've nailed this. I mean, you have mastered the offer creation secret. And when it doesn't work, you make it better by getting feedback from the people you're trying to make this offer to, and then just adjust the offer.
Yep, and based on their ideas, and they're selling it themselves. It's funny. I've got a seminar this weekend I'm teaching. I do fun fact. I do free business seminars every month from thesmartblueprint.com. And my seminar. I always joke. I was like, it's not like the 5 keys to bullshit and make you buy my shit. I actually deliver real content again because I want to over deliver. Yeah. So this Saturday, I don't know when this is going to go live, but at the time of recording, Saturday, it's called Offers That Crush. And I'm literally teaching the 3 steps to having offers that crush this Saturday. And yeah, it's exactly one of those things where I'm just like, no, here's how to make insane offers that just people just want to buy. And it's funny, I did this with a fitness company. You've probably seen it on Facebook. I bought 40% of a fitness company last year because I finally got in shape after years and years of not being in shape. I got in shape. And I used to create videos for Six Pack Shortcuts, which is that big famous.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Their very first viral videos, I created all of them. That was me. So again, I've been the behind the scenes guy, I told you, for a very long time. If you ever heard of Epic Meal Time, I helped them with their stuff. You can see me in some of their videos. They've got an American Pie video. There's a dude that drinks a shot of vinegar. That's me. If you watch the video.
No way.
Yeah. So I've helped a lot of pretty big companies. Black Rifle, a company, I've helped them through a company, Corridor Digital, that they work with, and I help those guys. So I've been the behind the scenes guy for a very long time, helping people with this kind of stuff. Anyway, my point is with the offers that crush thing. I totally lost my train of thought, but the whole point of the offers that crush thing is I wanted to create something that was really, really simple that anyone can just follow and do. And so the fitness company that I bought 40% of, I finally got in shape. And I was like, this is great. And I was like, we are going to turn the fitness model on its head and we're going to piss people off. So the way this fitness program works is you work out, I'm not kidding, you work out for 15 minutes twice a week. And you only work out every other minute. So half of that time you rest. Seriously. And you can pretty much eat whatever you want as long as you're not sensitive to it. And they do a lab gut test and they identify all the foods you're sensitive to. So I love making posts where I'm like, I'll eat a donut burger, ice cream, chocolate bars.
Look at my six pack.
Yeah, and I don't have a six pack, but I'm like, like I've got,
you're shredded, bro.
I've got arms like I've got a flat stomach and a six pack in the right angle, But I used to be skinny arm, fat gut guy when I was eating spinach and broccoli and stuff, and it's because I'm food sensitive to green vegetables and not food sensitive to cheese or milk, which means I can eat ice cream and donuts and cheese and it's no problem. So imagine my whole life being told you need to reduce ice cream and cheese and eat more vegetables. And that was wrong for me. Right. So I fell in love with this guy's offer because the whole point is it's a custom diet. And I was like, dude, let's destroy the fitness industry just because it's fun. And so we created his offer. And his offer was this. Regular diets don't work. So you need a diet for you. You need the you diet. So we're going to send off your blood and we're going to send off gut samples and we're going to identify all the foods you can and can't eat. And then we'll work with you to create a custom diet. You may be shocked to find that some of the foods you're currently not eating, you should be eating, and vice versa. By the way, teaching you this is free because if you don't want to do the lab test, you don't have to do it. We'll just teach you all the science behind it. But if you want to do the lab test, you can pay us and we'll do it. It's very simple. But we'll teach you the system for free. And then with the workouts, we're like, here's the science behind why you only have to work out for 6 minutes twice a week, over 15 minutes with breaks. And we'll teach that for free as well. And we'll even show you what the workouts are. But if you want to have a personal fitness trainer take you through the workout every week and hold you accountable, that's what you pay for. So the offer is only pay if you want help. If you want to do it yourself, the whole thing's free. By the way, it's a one-time fee for life of $2,000, which destroys every other fitness expert out there who's charging monthly or by the hour. And we can do it because the whole thing is systematized once you're inside the program. And you've got personal attention from a few coaches that are available 24/7 to answer. And then the real money is made from anyone who wants supplements afterwards. If they want to get that supplementation, they don't have to. It's an opt-in if you want it or not. So the continuity of the supplements keeps the program alive, but the opt-in is insane because it's lifetime personal fitness coaching for a one-off fee of $2,000. And that includes the lab test if you buy it within a certain period of time.
It sounds like a lot of this stuff is you're really good also at getting them to like self-qualify and raise their own hand type of deal. Like you're getting all this stuff for free, but if you want us to help you or give you the hand holding, sure, there's a fee. This is what it is. But it's getting them so excited that they're just raising their own hand saying, please help me.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
This person to sell to.
Yeah. And that's it. Like, so to this guy's audience, it wasn't a big audience, but we did 123 grand in an afternoon off this offer. And that's because there's the reason it's an odd number is 2K is there's a payment method. You can pay it. You can pay $300 a month for 10 months if you don't want to pay $2,000. Again, which just makes it affordable.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah. And so this is the kind of stuff that I'm always doing, but I'm always thinking, how can what I do be disruptive? How is it going to really upset everybody else? Which is why some people absolutely hate me. But it's great for the consumer. I'm pro-consumer and I'm, not anti-competition, but I feel bad if you're my competition because I'm going to help the little guy out a lot because I used to be broke and I know what it's like to be that person. But it's funny, but it is systems. I'm a nerd and a strategist. And so, because I play Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering and Warhammer and all these nerdy games. And in those games, if you have the best streamlined system, you put in, all the prep, like I said, the 90% in advance, prepping it all out. When you're in the game kind of plays itself and you just win. So I just apply that to business.
Wow. Okay. There's so much in here. You gave like an entire masterclass on like offers, on how to sell seminars there's so much in here. If anyone is thinking of buying your stuff, absolutely buy his stuff because this is like what we're getting for free. Imagine what happens when you give them a couple bucks. This is unbelievable. So how did you transition then? And maybe a little out of order, but how did you transition from being like just a dating coach, I guess, putting quotes, but just a dating coach to like where you are now? What was it that sparked you to like buy this fitness business, and you've got like another 10 or 11 companies or something like?
Yeah. So yeah, the change was one of my mentors, again, because that's the key. You got to pay experts, right, to learn. And I paid a man. I was looking for the real business experts. I'd found a bunch that was helping, but none of them were real. And no matter who you ask, there was one name that comes up time and time again as the guy, and it's Roland Frazier. And Roland Frazier is one of the owners of digitalmarketer.com. He was one of the people behind the Traffic and Conversion Summit before they sold it. He runs the War Room, which is one of the biggest masterminds in the world. And I'm proud to say he's my business partner in Epic, which is mergers and acquisitions, how to buy and sell businesses, and a few other projects that we have between us. So super, super proud to have him as a business partner. But 8 years ago, I was a student on his program, and I couldn't afford most of what he was selling, but I could afford his cheapest in-person 2-day event. So I saved up my money and I went to his cheapest in-person 2-day event. And the whole event was called Legs, which was leverage, exit, growth, and scale. And I signed up for this 2-day workshop. And at the end of it, I was hooked. I wanted to know everything this man knew. So he pitched a $100,000 power day where you could ask him anything you want. And I had $100,000 in savings. So I went home to my girlfriend and said, got some good news and got some bad news. And she goes, all right. She goes, bad news first. I was like, we're going to do good news first today.
We're going to do some good news first.
The good news is the event was amazing. And Roland has agreed to take an entire day to help us grow our business. And she was like, oh my God, that is amazing. I was like, I know, right? She goes, the bad news, like the bad news is it cost $100,000. And she goes, isn't that everything in our savings? I was like, technically, it's everything in my savings, is what I said. And I was like, and now I have nothing. But I gave him $100,000, and I spent a whole day with him. And just, I'll be honest with you, same as always, I didn't understand it. He was too smart. So by the end of the day, I had 8 hours with him, and I walked away, and I was like, wow, I can't use any of it. So I hired another coach, a guy called Ryan Stewman, who was a friend of mine. And I said,
Ryan?
Yeah. So I knew Ryan when Ryan was broke and sleeping on sofas. Like, so we sort of like came up together, you know? And so I gave Ryan $25,000 to spend a day with me to help me decipher what Roland had said. So we sat like two friends in an office, you know? And again, he's my friend, but I pay him, you know, because I want his attention. I want him to take a day out of his business and really give me the attention. I don't want him to meet me over coffee. I want to do it.
Right.
So he sat down and he helped me decipher what Roland was saying. And long story short, I ended up, there was a man, I had it in my head now, I could buy and sell businesses. That was like what I'd learned. But when am I going to do it, you know? And I just lost $100,000. So there was this guy by the name of Ty Lopez, who no one had heard of at the time. And it was a bit earlier than 8 years ago, whatever. No one knew who Ty was. They were about to though. And Ty had a dating business that he needed somebody to create content for. And my name had been put forward. So I went in and Ty paid me, I think like $12,000 a month to make some videos for them. So I took the money and got to hang out with Ty at his mansion. And then one day I went there to go and film. And they're like, hey, you need to wait. Ty's going to film a shoot in his garage with his car. You have to wait. You're going to bring the cameras up afterwards. So I was there in the room when he filmed, I'm here in my garage.
Here in my garage.
Yeah, I was there. And he had an alternate studio with books upstairs. That's where I used to film my dating videos for him, which is pretty funny. Anyway, yeah. And so within a month, Ty had blown up and suddenly Ty was everywhere. And so Ty's like, I don't want to do the dating business anymore. And he had a business partner and the business partner wanted to keep doing it. And so Ty sold his half of the dating business to the business partner. And the business partner came to me and said, well, I can't afford to hire you because I sold half the business. I bought half the business off Ty. And I was like, give me half the business. I'll do it for money we make.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was like, that's a good idea. And I used a lot of what Roland had taught me and I bought this business. So, or half of it for just doing the work. So I grew that up and I made back $100,000 and then some. You know, I made a lot of money back. So I was like, well, that was really smart. I had this concept. And then at the time, a lot of dating companies were going bankrupt or going bust because of it was a very tumultuous time to be a dating coach. But I've never taught anything sketchy. Everything I always teach is I've been teaching consent since 2008. So when suddenly the whole world is like, you need to talk about consent, I was like, oh, I've got modules on that. I've always thought that was important, because I was always paranoid that someone would sleep me and change their mind the next day. And then, that was a fear of mine, So I was like, you got to make sure they say yes. So it was funny because I already had all this in my program. So all these companies were going out, and I would say to them as they were going out, can I have your mailing list? And I would buy their mailing list for a really small amount of money, and gain their mailing list. So I gained a massive mailing list through doing that. And so I bump into Roland and I'd be like, hey, I just want to say thank you so much. I was like, it didn't pay out initially straight away, but I kept working it, let it sit in the back of my mind. And now I make a lot of money, and I make a lot of money because of you. Well, and Roland's like, oh yeah, and I'm teaching all this business, buying and selling stuff. So one day, complete separate thing. My son, I'm a nerd, play Dungeons and Dragons. My son's a nerd, he plays Dungeons and Dragons. So my son comes home crying. He's like, Dad, he's crying. And at this point, I'd already started doing business advice, just telling people what I knew about dating and making a bit of cash doing it. It was a very small component, but I was doing it. And my son comes home crying. He's like, what's up, bud? And he's like, they're going to close the Dungeons and Dragons store. I was like, oh, I'm so sad. I'm sorry. And he goes, fix it. I'm like, what do you mean fix it? And he goes, fix it. Don't you fix businesses? I was like, buddy,
oh, that's cute.
Right? I'm like, buddy, I'm a dating coach. And he goes, yeah, but you fix businesses. I was like, I have, yeah, but not a lot, some, but I don't know if I can fix this. And he goes, but you're my dad. And I was like, God, fine. So I go and meet the owner of this Dungeons and Dragons shop. It's just 20 minutes down the road. And he's like, yeah, I'm selling it. I don't want to do it. Blah, 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 blah. He's like, you can have it for 25 grand. And I was like, I'm not going to give you 25 grand for this thing. It loses money every month. That's why. And he's like, well, that's what I want. And I was like, you know what, mate? And I just started thinking of it like a sales process. I was like, call me when you're screwed. And I just went away, and I'd come in every month, and every month I knew he was losing money every month. I was like, you tired of losing money yet? Anyway, we got down to an agreement where I could just buy the stock off him instead of buying the whole company. So I bought the whole business for $5 grand, the whole business, which was just the stock. And I took over the shop, and then COVID hit. And the shop went from making $4 grand a month to making $53. And I sat in the shop and I was like, well, I'm going to build this thing up. And so I started building up the business, and I grew it, and it grew a lot, and it grew rapidly. Phone up Roland, tell him, I bought a non-dating business. And I tell him what I did. So Roland says, would you share that story? I'm about to teach people mergers and acquisitions. I want to teach people how to do it. So I get brought on as a guest in a free seminar he was doing on this to teach my story. So I tell my story. And of course, me and Roland at this point, we've been friends, and we talk about mergers and acquisitions a lot, but him mostly teaching me and me getting free advice because I gave him 100 grand once, right? Which is kind of what happens. And then long story short, Roland's like, messages me, my throat's killing me. Answer the next 67 questions. I'm going to rest. If you get any wrong, I'll make fun of you publicly. So I was like, okay. And so I answered 67 M&A questions. And it turns out after 8 years of buying and selling dating companies and the Dungeons and Dragons company that I got was good at it. So Roland comes live and he's like, yeah, Adam answered every question perfect. So I'm like, oh my God, that's great. And he phones me afterwards. Do you want to help me teach people how to buy and sell businesses? And I was like, dude, I've only done this like 8 times. And, 6 of them were dating businesses. One of them wasn't, and it was kind of an accident. And the other one was a Dungeons and Dragons shop. And he goes, yeah, but you always did it with my method, and you always succeeded. You've never failed. And I was like, well, that's true. And he goes, and the only reason you haven't done more is because you haven't done more. You could. So we came to an agreement that we'd be business partners in this, and he'd give me a percentage to come on board and teach. And I said to him, it's not an if, but I said to him, I'll make a commitment. I will either buy or sell a business every 8 weeks, which is the cycle. So there is always a new deal to talk about. Well, that was near the beginning of 2020. We're now in the beginning of 2022, and I have absolutely stuck to that and either bought or sold a business every 8 weeks, often every 4 weeks, actually.
Wow.
And and I have grown significantly. My knowledge of mergers and acquisitions has gone through the roof. Plus, through that program and a whole bunch of my own programs, consulted for 2,000 companies, either on mergers and acquisitions or on business growth and scale. So at this point, you fast forward 2 years of dedication that all you're doing is helping companies grow and scale. You learn. And now I own 2 software companies, a property management company, real estate companies, financial companies, staffing companies, dating companies, obviously, gaming companies, YouTube channels, conventions, and I'm in the middle of talking about buying a gun store. So I want a Dungeons and Dragons shop. Right. So it's life's changed. And that's how you make the change.
This is so sick. This is probably one of my favorite interviews I've done in a very long time. I really, because you're dropping real stuff here, and I love hearing this stuff because you're not really holding anything back for it. I can hear. I mean, you're telling us exactly what you've done, and the fact that you're able to buy and sell businesses every month just blows my mind. There's so many people who are like, I want to buy and sell a business, and they've been trying to do it for like over a year. You're doing it once a month.
I'll put it in perspective. I've got one right now I'm looking at. It's a famous YouTube channel, not big famous, but like little famous. But it has 250,000 subscribers of people that are in love with the book, The 48 Laws of Power. So you can imagine what kind of consumers they are. This is a good crowd.
Yeah.
And I've currently got the business negotiated down to $15,000. And I'm trying to decide if I want to buy it or not. That's
wow.
It didn't start at 15,000, but my knowledge of negotiating, I've got it down to 15 grand. I could at any point flick the switch and buy this business. It's a YouTube channel based business. Now, the reason it's so cheap is because when you, to do the real thing, a business is based on its, what they call EBITDA, or seller's discretionary earnings, which is basically how much money the person makes. And because the person hasn't made any money in the last year, the business is worth practically zero. Right. When we add in the multiple of what it would be worth plus assets, that's what brings it out to 15 grand. The guy hasn't been able to sell it for 6 months, and that's why it's so low. So I basically showed him the real numbers, the real math, no BS. And I was like, look, this is just what it's worth. There's no ego here. This is just a fact. And I said, you got 2 choices. Build it up for the next year, grow it and make it big. By the way, if you want to do that, we can partner and I'll help you on it. And of course, I would gain the growth. Alternatively, sell it to me now. I'll pay above what it's worth, which is this cash amount. And I'll take it over and I'll do it all myself. It's just a question of whether you want to be involved. I was like, but it looks like you haven't done anything with the last year. You're probably over it and doing other things. And so he went, yeah, you're right. He goes, I'll take the 15K. So now it's back in my court. I just have to say yes or no. So and that's what I do. I negotiate deals whether I want them or not. And then I'm like, do I actually want it? And that's,
I'm blown away, but I did this on a much smaller scale. And I feel like now it's like, you've just inspired me to start trying this again. So here's what I did. And I have a question attached. Let me ask the question first, just so I don't forget it. What are some, and before you answer, I'll tell you what I did, but I'm curious to know, like, if there's a certain criteria or what are certain things you look for in a business or in a YouTube channel that you're looking to acquire? Like, what are some things to look out for before you answer it?
Oh yeah, go for it.
Sorry.
No, go.
I want to say this because I think I made some mistakes, but I made a little bit of money. And anyway, so I purchased a group, a copywriting group called Copy Monk for like hundreds of dollars, like nothing, like $200 to $500. I can't remember what it was. The person wasn't doing anything with it. Great guy, friend of mine. I love him. And I just offered him a couple $100 because I'm like, it doesn't look like you're doing anything with this. And I sell copywriting stuff. Maybe I can do it. Now I purchased it. We sold a couple little 5K mentorships. So made an ROI, but I haven't really, the group isn't very active. I haven't really been able to do much. So I'm almost wondering if, even though I made money with this, if it was a good purchase, I mean, it was only a couple $100, but like, was it a good purchase? What were some of the things I should have been looking out for? Okay.
It was a great purchase. You did a great job. You did exactly right. The number one thing I care about is, do I have an avatar that I know I can sell to? And then I'll often do due diligence. I'll go in there first and talk. So a couple of stupid things. First thing I'd be saying to you, should you have bought it or should you have rented it? You might have been better off just renting it for a month for $50.
Renting it?
Yeah. Just,
can I rent? Whole concept. This is your throwaway line that just blew me away. Yeah, renting it?
Yeah. Can I rent your Facebook admin group off you? I'll be an admin for 30 days. And during that time, I'll create the following amounts of content, deliver a ton of value to the group. In return, if I get any leads, I'll be able to sell to them. That's what I'm after. So that's what I would consider. That way you can hand it back to him afterwards. You have to deal with it. That's one way of doing it. The other thing that I would consider doing is after you did your promotion, contact 2 other copywriters and ask them if they want to run your group at 50% of any sales they make from the group. Now, you don't have to run it anymore. These other 2 copywriters, or maybe you can even have 5 copywriters, give them each one day. So you got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. They all get a day. And on that day, they have to create 2 pieces of content and they can pitch their stuff. And anyone who makes any sales, they owe you 50%. They have to use an affiliate link that you create, something like that. That's another way to do it. So there's,
I can't write fast enough. I'm so happy this is recorded.
Just a couple of ways of monetizing it, right? And then of course you can flip it, because what you can do is after you've made, we made 10 grand in a month, you could literally turn around to someone and say, hey, bought a Facebook group, made 10 grand in the first month. Here's the evidence of how much I made. If we calculate that out across 12 months and do averaging, we'll say you should be worth 120 grand. Well, let's assume good months and bad months. We'll call it 60. It does take work. So we'll value it at a 1x multiple, which is basically a valuation of $60,000. So it's what we call a projected value of 60,000. I'll sell it for 20,000 because I don't want to run the group. If there's anyone that wants to buy it off me for 20 grand, you can have it. And I'll hand over the admin rights and everything. Other than that, I'm going to work on it. At this point, I don't want to split my focus on what I'm doing. I'd rather just sell it out for the potential cash in the future and see if you can sell it for 20K. And then what I would do is I would say to somebody, I'll accept 10 payments.
I bring my mouth closed a little.
Yeah. I'll accept 10 payments of 2 grand if you want to do it that way. But whether you make the money or not, you owe me the 2 grand a month. That would be my deal. I was like, because, you might buy it and not work it, and that's not fair to me. So that would be a way. It's so
ridiculous. There's so much fucking value in this thing. I'm so happy I did this fucking call. I don't even curse this much usually, but that's how excited I am. Dude,
yeah. It's funny. Roland always says my biggest weakness, he goes, is you're too humble and you haven't told everyone how good you are at what you do. And that was why which is the answer to your question in a roundabout way is, and unfortunately I've got to bounce because I've got a meeting in a few minutes.
Absolutely.
But he said, Roland said to me, he's like, your biggest issue is you've done a disservice to everyone by not letting people know how good you are. So he's like, and he started it. He said, look, I'm going to start telling people how good you are. He goes, I want you to do the same. So this year, people are going to hear a lot more about me, which is my push, which is why I'm doing this, because I would have just hidden before and just sat playing Dungeons and Dragons.
I love this so much. I know you got some other stuff to do. Where can people learn more about you? Do you have a website, something they can go to?
Yeah, just go to thesmartblueprint.com and take all the free stuff. Like, you don't have to buy, just go get all the free stuff. There's a business plan there. I explained, you need business plans, otherwise everything falls apart. But the biggest thing there is the 3 biggest reasons why people fail to get the American dream. Basically, 92% of the reasons why companies fail are just 3 reasons. There's a seminar. It explains what all those 3 reasons are. Better yet, it gives you step-by-step systems to put into place to make sure you don't have it, doesn't happen to you.
Guys, make sure you go check that out. thesmartblueprint.com. Adam, man, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. You're a legend. Cheers, dude. Thanks.
Take care.